The term men in black refers to mysterious individuals typically described as wearing dark suits and sunglasses. They are often reported to intimidate or threaten witnesses of UFO sightings and other unexplained phenomena. Their appearance has led to various conspiracy theories about government secrecy, raising questions about whether these individuals are actually government agents tasked with keeping encounters with the unknown under wraps. In this video, we will look at 5 instances where either the military or the men in black have shown up after an otherworldly encounter. Mothman sightings, followed by MIB visits. The Mothman sightings in West Virginia are well known, and we've covered them many times before. But just in case you haven't heard of them, here's a quick recap of what happened. On November 15th, 1966, 2 couples from Point Pleasant, Roger and Linda Scarborough, and Steve and Mary Mallett, reported seeing a large black creature with glowing red eyes near the TNT area, a former World War II munitions site. Linda described the creature as a 7-foot-tall, slender figure with white wings. Distressed, the couples fled, claiming that the creature chased their car while screeching until they reached the city limits. In the days that followed, more people came forward with sightings after local newspapers reported the story. 2 volunteer firemen described the creature as a large bird with red eyes. Contractor Newell Partridge stated that when he shone a flashlight on the creature, its eyes glowed like bicycle reflectors. He also linked buzzing noises from his TV and the disappearance of his German Shepherd to the creature's presence. Wildlife biologist Robert L. Smith from West Virginia University noted that the descriptions matched those of the sandhill crane, a large bird that may have strayed from its migration route, which could explain why it went unrecognized in the area. Sighting continued, and on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed, resulting in the deaths of 46 people. The Mothman was blamed for the tragedy. But it wasn't just the Mothman that infiltrated the community. Following the sightings, several witnesses and locals reported that impeccably dressed strangers appeared in their town. These individuals wore tailored black suits, crisp white dress shirts, formal black ties, and highly polished black shoes, and while their attire was pristine, it was noticeably out of fashion for the era, leading many to question their origin and purpose. Witnesses reported that these mysterious figures would approach people, asking probing questions about the legendary Mothman, while ominously advising them against discussing their experiences further. Their intimidating presence left many feeling unsettled. Among those confronted by the men in black was reporter Mary Hyre, who was questioned about her Mothman sighting and later warned against sharing any information. Dottie Campbell, a close friend of Hyre, recounted her fear during the interview, explaining that both she and Mary felt an overwhelming sense of dread in the presence of these strange men. Mary had shared with Dottie that the men never blinked, a detail that heightened their apprehension. Linda Scarborough, a witness to the Mothman sightings, provided a chilling description of the men who visited her. She said, "They wore black suits, black hats, and dark sunglasses. They drove black vehicles. I believe they were Cadillacs, and although they looked like human beings, there was something unsettling about them. Their skin appeared slightly transparent, allowing us to see the veins coursing through their hands. Their fingers were unusually long and thin, and when my father tried to shake hands with them, he noted that their grip was awkward and hesitant, as if they were unfamiliar with the gesture." Linda also revealed that they were persistently followed by one particular vehicle containing 3 men. They even stalked us through a drive-thru at a restaurant, she recalled. We were terrified to turn around, so instead, we cautiously observed them through the rearview mirror. In another unsettling encounter, a man and woman carrying a camera sought to photograph Mothman witnesses Steve and Mary Mallett. The Malletts carefully noted the license plate of the Volkswagen that the pair drove, but when they reported the number to the police, they were alarmed to learn that the plate was non-existent. Another person who witnessed the men in black was journalist John Keel, who made it his mission to confront these elusive individuals. He enlisted the assistance of local law enforcement in multiple towns, actively pursuing leads on their whereabouts. During his investigations in West Virginia and Ohio, Keel often received calls at his hotel from locals reporting sightings of the MIB. However, by the time he rushed to the scene, the mysterious figures had always vanished without a trace. Keel observed an interesting pattern. At first, the men in black were predominantly seen driving sleek black Cadillacs. However, after he published articles mentioning this detail, reports began to indicate that they had switched to driving inconspicuous Volkswagens. Notably, many of these vehicles had license plates that did not exist in any official records. In his book, The Mothman Prophecies, Keel recounts his investigation into Mothman and connects the sightings to UFOs and supernatural phenomena. He also discusses encounters with the men in black. In one account, a couple were visited by two unusually tall men with strange heads and ill-fitting black clothes. They were over 6 feet tall, with pale features. One had a wire running up his leg, and their shoes made squishing sounds. The men spoke in clipped sentences and asked questions about scars or birthmarks. They claimed they were searching for lost heirs and suggested the man of the house might inherit something. After the strange visit concluded, they gestured in the dark, and a black Cadillac arrived to pick them up. In fact, Keel himself was not without his own peculiarities. His friend Mark Coppola claimed that Keel could look at people and tell exactly when they were going to die. Albert K. Bender's visit. Albert K. Bender was born in the early 20th century. After being discharged from the Army Air Force in 1943, he lived with his mother Ellen and his stepfather at 784 Broad Street in Bridgeport. It was here that his strange encounters occurred. Bender was known to be somewhat eccentric. He worked as the chief timekeeper at Acme Shear Co. and filled his attic room with an assortment of 20 chiming clocks that chimed every 15 minutes. This was not the only curiosity that adorned his room. He also had shrunken heads, faux skulls, and his own quirky artwork, and to enhance the atmosphere in his room, he played unnerving sound effects on his record player, dubbing his space the Chamber of Horrors. With the surge of flying saucer sightings in the late 1940s, Bender became fascinated with UFOs and the supernatural, and in 1952, he established the International Flying Saucer Bureau, IFSB. The Bureau was a huge success, attracting 600 members from around the world through a quarterly journal called Space Review, which shared UFO sightings and theories about these mysterious objects. However, shortly after setting up the IFSB, Bender began experiencing unsettling events, including ill health, strange phone calls, and a persistent feeling of being watched. In November 1952, things took a turn for the worse for Bender, when whilst at the cinema, he noticed a man with glowing eyes watching him, and as he walked home, he felt the being was following. Soon after, he claimed that he was telepathically hypnotized and levitated, and smelt a burning sulfur odor throughout his attic room. In an effort to rid himself of the smell, Bender reached out to his Space Review readers to participate in an experiment. He asked them to memorize and recite a form letter he created at a specific time. This event, known as World Contact Day or C-Day, took place at 6 p.m. local time on March 15, 1953. The message began with, "Calling occupants of interplanetary craft. We of the IFSB wish to make contact with you. We are your friends." Unfortunately, Bender's message did not have the desired effect. His home continued to fill with the smell of sulfur, and he felt a telepathic command to cease his inquiries into UFOs. He did claim that in the July edition of Space Review, he would reveal a startling revelation. However, this issue was never published. In July 1953, Bender was visited by 3 men dressed in black, resembling clergymen, and wearing Homburg hats. These men communicated with him telepathically, instructing him to stop all UFO-related research, and they confiscated copies of Space Review. After their departure, the foul odor of sulfur returned, and a yellow fog enveloped his upstairs rooms. Disturbed by their presence, Bender admitted that he was scared to death and could not eat for days. He continued to experience repeated visits from these men. Bender's experiences were reported in local newspapers. An article titled "Mystery Visitors Halt Research," published on November 29, 1953, quotes Bender, stating that 3 men in dark suits flashed credentials showing them to be representatives of a higher authority and posed questions about the International Flying Saucer Bureau. At the time, these visitors were interpreted as government officials. However, years later, Bender revealed that the men in black were not from Earth. Telepathic messages, headaches, and feelings of being stalked led Bender to shut down the IFSB. The final issue of Space Review was published in October 1953, containing a warning. The mystery of the flying saucers is no longer a mystery. We advise those engaged in saucer work to be very cautious. In 1956, IFSB member Gray Barker published They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers, which detailed Bender's experiences and introduced the term Men in Black. A decade after his encounter, Bender shared his story in Flying Saucers and the Three Men, emphasizing the mind-manipulating nature of his visitors. Bender left UFO research when he moved to California 3 years after his autobiography was published. He passed away at age 94 on March 29, 2016. The UFO witness who was threatened by the MIB. Lake Pend Oreille in Idaho is home to a long-standing legend about a mysterious creature known as the Pend Oreille Paddler. This creature is often compared to the Loch Ness Monster, and some theories even suggest it could be linked to UFOs. In the same area, there have been reports of unusual objects in the sky, particularly fireballs, leading some to believe there may be a connection to the lake. Carolyn Abbott, who lives in the area, has witnessed some of this strange activity, as has her family, and on one particular occasion, she was threatened by the military as she tried to pursue a UFO. Carolyn was working one afternoon when she spotted something crossing the mountains. Initially, she thought it was a meteor, but it didn't look quite right, as meteors usually emit a mist from the back. This object did not. Instead, it had a distinct smoke trail, and whatever it was completely engulfed in flames. It was moving faster than a plane. As she watched the fireball, it appeared to be getting closer to the ground, prompting Carolyn to get into her truck and pursue it. However, as she drove, the object started to disappear behind the mountains. Carolyn continued to drive in the direction of the UFO until she rounded a bend and was confronted by military officers pointing guns at her. Quickly, she backed away and turned around to escape from the aggressive squad. A few days later, she learned that others had also seen the military in the area, and they were spotted driving through town in a flatbed truck with something hidden under a tarp. The military is rarely seen in the area and had no apparent reason to be there, as their base is located 84 miles away in Spokane. Carolyn strongly believes they were chasing the object she witnessed and were eager to prevent her from seeing it. Carolyn is not the only local who has spotted the fireball crafts. Many others have reported similar UFO sightings in the skies above northern Idaho, particularly around Lake Pend Oreille, which seems to attract unusual attention from these crafts. Carolyn believes that the native Kalispel people may hold the key to understanding what is being witnessed in the area. The term star people is commonly used in folklore and ufology to refer to extraterrestrial beings or entities associated with UFOs. In Idaho, especially around Lake Pend Oreille, there have been numerous reports of unexplained fireballs and other aerial phenomena, and it has been suggested there is a possible connection between the star people, the lake, and the ancient petroglyphs found in the area. Whatever the truth about the strange phenomenon, it seems the government doesn't want us to know about it. Reddit story. Reddit has always been a great source of information for personal stories that wouldn't ordinarily make the headlines, and we found this next story on Reddit, and although it didn't get as much attention as some accounts on the forum, we thought it was interesting. The account, titled My Actual Men in Black Story, was posted in the r/Men in Black subreddit and describes a personal experience with the infamous Men in Black. We will relay this story in the first person. Back in 2019, I lived in Hollis, Queens, New York. I grew up there but moved to Brooklyn in early 2021. My neighborhood was pretty normal, not much ever went on, and it was quite quiet once the sun went down. I was around 16 at the time this story took place. In my area, there were parking lots behind a group of short apartment buildings on either side of the street, extending the length of the block. The lots had dumpsters where residents disposed of their garbage, but no one ever parked back there because the large gate had been broken for most of my 10 years in Queens. The regular people-sized entrances were fine though, After school, a friend and I would often play made-up games back there, using our imagination. We'd come up with games based on whatever was cool or just from scratch. At the time this story took place, I think we were playing a game inspired by JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. We usually played until dark, and it was around fall. I remember just having fun and being silly while we played. As dusk fell, we noticed something unusual. It must have been around 8 or 9 p.m. when we paused and looked up at the sky because something caught our attention. In the dark sky, we saw flashes of orange lightning. However, the lightning was forming weird shapes, as if it were writing. There was no thunder, just the mysterious lightning. This is where things get weird. Before we could fully process what was happening, we heard footsteps approaching one of the entrances to the back lot, specifically near where people accessed the dumpsters. We saw 3 men walking our way. To describe them, 2 of the men were incredibly muscular, like the type of ripped bodybuilders you rarely see in real life. They were also quite tall and Caucasian. They wore tight compression shirts, military-style pants and boots, sporting buzz cuts and badges around their necks. They didn't look like cops, and they most definitely weren't FBI. It was too dark for me to read the badges. The 3rd man stood a little further back than the other 2. He was shorter, heavier set, and also Caucasian. He wore a hoodie, shorts, and regular Chuck Taylor high tops. Like the others, he had a badge around his neck, but he also had a bowl cut and a beard, while the other 2 were clean-shaven. Uniquely, he didn't speak at all during the interaction and carried a small laptop, typing on it continuously. As the 3 men entered the parking lot, they quickly approached my friend and me. The 2 muscular men did most of the talking. Once they were a few feet away, they finally looked down at us while still gazing at the sky. They didn't state their names or which agency they were from. They carried regular-looking pistols at their hips. One of the men asked us if we'd seen anything strange going on there. My friend and I felt something was off and didn't look up at the sky like the men were doing. Instead, we answered their question and stated that we hadn't seen anything unusual. There was a pause as they stared at us. Then they continued listing bad activities, asking if we had seen anything odd in the back lot, which we both insisted we hadn't. The 3rd man with the laptop was also observing us intently. Perhaps they believed us because they went on to say that it wasn't safe for us to be out there at night, urging us to head home. We agreed and started walking out of the back lot. However, out of curiosity, we decided to return just to check things out, as something didn't feel right. In literally 10 to 15 seconds, all 3 men had vanished. They disappeared into thin air. We couldn't believe it. We knew every entrance and exit to the back lot since we were there every day. We ran the entire length of the lot and searched the sidewalks, but the men were nowhere to be found. No vehicles, no men, just gone. My friend and I, who are still close to this day, talk about this often. It's something I've held onto for a while, and I never really knew where or how to share this story. Those shapes in the sky still haunt me. It's a pretty weird one. We'd love to know if any of you have experienced anything similar that you've never shared before. The Calvine UFO photo and government removal. On August 4th, 1990, 2 hikers near Calvine, Scotland, captured a photograph of a mysterious diamond-shaped flying object hovering in the sky, with a fighter jet visible in the background. The 2 men reported their experience to the Daily Record, a Glasgow-based newspaper, and provided both the photographs and the negatives they had taken. They claimed they sought shelter under some trees, from which they observed the craft, taking photographs while it silently hovered above, before ascending vertically and disappearing from view. At that time, the Daily Record's picture editor sent the photos to Craig Lindsay, the RAF press officer in Scotland. He forwarded the prints to the Ministry of Defence in London, who also requested the negatives. The Daily Record never released the story, and the photographs and the negatives disappeared. For 32 years, the image, known as the Calvine photo, vanished from public view, becoming a subject of speculation, theories, and myths. However, thanks to the efforts of British journalist David Clarke, this groundbreaking image has recently resurfaced. After 13 years of research, Clarke discovered that Craig Lindsay had kept a copy of the last original print, waiting for someone to inquire about it. The photograph is described as the best UFO photo ever taken. The mystery today centers around the men who took the photograph and witnessed the event. They seem to have vanished, and despite renewed public interest following the image's release, they have not come forward, and no one knows what has happened to them. So what did they actually witness? It remains uncertain exactly what the photo depicts, but Clark speculates that the mysterious flying object could be the Aurora, a rumored top-secret reconnaissance aircraft that the US allegedly developed in the 1980s. However, there has never been substantial evidence to support the existence of such a project, and the US government has consistently denied it. Regardless of what the photo shows, it seems the government wanted to keep it quiet and possibly silence the men who witnessed it, raising the question, why? So that's 5 stories of supposed encounters with the Men in Black. What do you make of this? Are you a Men in Black believer? Or do you think there's a more plausible explanation for these? Thanks for watching, keep searching, and we'll see you next time.